Tenshura X Wednesday by Rimuchi. Rimuru Nightshade. Rimuru Tempest, the ruler of the Jura Tempest Federation, sat in his office, drowning in a sea of paperwork. His platinum blue hair shimmered faintly under the light of his desk lamp, but his golden eyes were dulled with exhaustion. The emotions that usually gave his expressions life were now absent. His movements were robotic, mechanical, as if he were no more than an automaton programmed for a single purpose, completing paperwork. Within his mind, however, an entirely different scene played out. Less than, master, greater than a feminine voice echoed with both warmth and authority. It was his first wife, a facet of his soul given form in his mental landscape. Less than, you've been at this for hours. I believe it's time to stop. Do something fun for once. Greater than. Rimuru didn't even glance up from his papers. He continued signing documents without hesitation. There's no time for fun, he replied telepathically. These policies and trade agreements won't handle themselves. The future of Tempest depends on it. Seal, his ever-loyal partner in Manas, spoke up in agreement with Rimuru. Less than, master is correct. This workload is necessary to maintain order and progression. Leisure can wait. Greater than. His wife, however, wasn't easily deterred. Seal, surely you can sense what I do. Master isn't just overworking, he's burying himself in tasks to avoid his emotions. That's not healthy. Ciel's response was calm and logical, as always. Less than, I understand your concerns, but Master's will is absolute. If he deems this work essential, then it is not my place to intervene. Greater than. The conversation ended there, leaving Rimuru to his endless stack of documents. Hours passed, and finally, Rimuru placed the last piece of paper into the completed pile. He leaned back in his chair, letting out a sigh of relief. But then, something unexpected happened. A sudden, sharp pain shot through his entire body. It wasn't physical, it felt as though his very soul was being torn apart. Rimuru's eyes widened in shock, his vision blurring. Ciel, he shouted in his mind. What's happening? Ciel's voice responded, but for the first time, there was a hint of guilt in her tone. Less than, I apologize, master. This is my doing. Greater than. What do you mean, you're doing? Rimuru demanded, but the pain overwhelmed him. His consciousness faded, and he slumped over his desk, unconscious. When Rimuru opened his eyes, he was no longer in his office. Instead, he found himself in a strange void, surrounded by swirling lights and shadows. He glanced down at himself and was startled to see his body looked different. It wasn't his usual form but his old self. Ciel, he called out cautiously. Less than, what's going on? Why do I look like this? Greater than. Ciel appeared before him, her ethereal form radiating both beauty and power. Less than, I took the liberty of separating the darker, more arrogant aspects of your personality from your main self, she explained. Those traits were becoming a burden to you, hindering your ability to grow. Greater than. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. You separated a part of me. Is that even possible? Ciel nodded. Less than, it is, though it is an extremely delicate process. The darker version of you now exists as a separate entity, though it is still bound to your soul. I could not destroy it, as it is a fundamental part of who you are. Greater than. Before Rimuru could respond, he felt a presence behind him. He turned and froze. Standing there was his darker self, a mirror image, yet entirely different. This other Rimuru had jet black hair that absorbed the surrounding light, and his eyes burned a deep crimson red. The aura emanating from him was suffocating, a mix of raw power and malice. The darker Rimuru smirked, his voice dripping with arrogance. Well, so this is the real me. Pathetic. No wonder Ciel decided to split us apart. Rimuru frowned, studying his doppelganger carefully. What am I supposed to do with him, Ciel? He's dangerous. Ciel's voice was calm, yet firm. Less than, he is indeed dangerous, but as I said, he is still a part of your soul. It is my duty to ensure his survival. I will send him to another universe, one that matches his nature. There, he can exist without threatening this world. Greater than. Rimuru hesitated. Are you sure that's the best solution? Less than, yes, greater than, Ciel replied. Less than, he cannot remain here, but destroying him would harm your soul irreparably. Sending him away is the only viable option. Greater than. After a moment of silence, Rimuru sighed and nodded. All right, do what you have to do. But before you send him away, give him a skill like Raphael. I don't want him to be completely helpless. Seal seemed surprised by the request but ultimately relented. Less than, very well, master. I will grant him an ultimate skill similar to Raphael, though its power will be restricted in his new universe. Greater than. The darker Rimuru chuckled darkly. How generous of you. I'll make good use of it. Seal raised her hand, and a glowing portal appeared behind the darker Rimuru. The dark clone smirked one last time before stepping through the portal, vanishing into the unknown. As the portal closed, Rimuru let out a long breath and turned to Seal. Thank you for handling that. I'm not sure what I'd do without you. Ciel's voice softened, her tone affectionate. Less than, it is my duty to support you, master. Now, please take this opportunity to rest or engage in something enjoyable. You've done enough work for today. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled. Alright, I'll take a break, but only because you insist. He left the office with a light heart, grateful for Ciel's unwavering support and guidance. Third-person POV. A dense fog curled through the ancient forests of Transylvania, weaving between gnarled, skeletal trees. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a cold silver light over the land. Shadows danced on the uneven cobblestone roads, and an eerie silence pervaded the air, broken only by the occasional howl of a distant wolf. The towering peaks of the Carpathians loomed like silent sentinels, guarding the secrets of this foreboding land. At the heart of this desolation stood the Nightshade Castle. Perched atop a jagged cliff, it appeared more a fortress of despair than a residence. Its blackened stone walls were adorned with grotesque gargoyles, their twisted faces frozen in perpetual sneers. Blood-red banners hung limply from the spires, and jagged iron gates barred the entrance. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the castle's towering silhouette, which seemed to pierce the heavens themselves. To the unassuming villagers below, the Nightshades were an eccentric yet wealthy family, but those who truly knew their nature whispered of vampires in hushed tones. Rimuru stirred, his crimson eyes fluttering open. The room around him was suffocatingly dark, lit only by the faint glow of a single candelabra on a black oak table. Crimson drapes hung over the windows, blocking out any trace of the outside world. The walls were lined with ancient, ornate carvings that depicted scenes of carnage and triumph. At the far end of the room stood an enormous mirror, its frame decorated with skulls and roses, reflecting nothing but the empty space. Rimuru sat up on a luxurious bed draped in crimson and black silks. The air was thick with the scent of iron and decay, but to him, it was oddly comforting. His lips curled into a faint smile. What a charming little place, he muttered, his voice dripping with dark amusement. Less than, you are awake, master. Greater than. Rimuru's gaze sharpened as Raphael's voice echoed in his mind, its tone devoid of emotion yet brimming with knowledge. Raphael, where am I? Rimuru asked as he stood, his black hair tumbling down his shoulders. Less than, Lady Seal has arranged several things for you, master. Greater than. Rimuru's interest piqued, and he crossed his arms. Oh, care to elaborate? Less than, as a vampire, the races of slime and true dragons do not exist in this world. Lady Seal has created a new identity for you. You are now Rimuru Nightshade, the only son of Cal Nightshade and Maria Nightshade. This castle belongs to your family, located in Transylvania. Your current name and lineage have been carefully crafted to blend into this reality. Greater than. Rimuru's smirk widened, revealing his sharp fangs. So, I'm a vampire now. I should have expected nothing less from Seal. She really thought of everything. Less than correct. Your current abilities align with your new form. You also possess parents in this reality, ensuring a seamless transition. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled. Parents, huh, she's more thorough than I thought. This is going to be fun. His smile turned sinister, his crimson eyes glinting with excitement. A soft knock echoed through the room, followed by the entrance of a young woman. Her purple hair flowed elegantly behind her, and her piercing violet eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. She was dressed in a classic maid's uniform, though her movements betrayed a grace far beyond human capabilities. Master Rimuru, she said softly, her voice calm and respectful. It is time for you to prepare for school. Rimuru raised an eyebrow, his smirk not fading. School, huh, looks like I'm still stuck with that nonsense. As the maid turned to leave, Rimuru called out lazily, what's your name? Raphael answered before the maid could speak. Less than, name, Eva. Age, 189 years. Race, Dhampir, vampire. Greater than. Interesting, Rimuru muttered, his tone laced with amusement. He glanced at the wardrobe in the corner and frowned. The clothes provided were far too formal for his liking. Instead, He pulled out a short-sleeved black shirt and paired it with crimson pants. The ensemble radiated confidence and power, a reflection of his personality. As he adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, Eva re-entered the room. She paused, her violet eyes widening slightly. Master, that outfit suits you far better than the others. Rimuru strode over to her, his movements deliberate and commanding. He placed a hand on her head, smirking as she stiffened under his touch. Good observation, he said smoothly before walking past her. Eva blinked, surprised, then quickly composed herself and followed him down the grand, dimly lit corridors of the castle. The dining hall was as grand as it was unsettling. A long, obsidian table stretched across the room, surrounded by high-backed chairs upholstered in dark red velvet. Candles flickered ominously in black iron chandeliers overhead, casting long shadows on the walls. Cal Nightshade, a tall, imposing man with mismatched eyes, one gold, one red, and jet-black hair, sat at the head of the table. His cold demeanor was matched only by the intensity of his gaze. Maria Nightshade, by contrast, was warm and cheerful. Her ruby-red eyes sparkled with mischief, and her snow-white hair framed a youthful face. Good morning, dear, Maria greeted him with a bright smile. Did you sleep well? Rimuru nodded as he took his seat. Well enough, he said, his tone indifferent. Eva served him breakfast, dark bread and a goblet filled with a thick, crimson liquid. Rimuru took a sip, savoring the metallic taste. Maria and Cal exchanged a glance before turning to their son. Remember, Rimuru, Cal said, his voice stern. Do not drink from humans directly. It's unseemly. Maria added with a teasing smile, we'll remind you every day until you get it through that thick skull of yours. Rimuru sighed, resting his chin on his hand. You two are anything but normal, you know that. Cal's gaze hardened, but Maria laughed. We're just looking out for you, dear. Rimuru finished his meal and stood, brushing off their comments. Fine, fine, I'll behave. Eva followed Rimuru as he made his way down the winding path from the castle to the school gates. The sun was hidden behind thick clouds, casting a perpetual gloom over the land. Tell me, Eva, Rimuru began, his tone casual yet commanding. What kind of place is this school? It is a school for humans, master, Eva replied. You are expected to blend in and maintain appearances. Rimuru chuckled darkly. Humans, huh, this should be amusing. The two walked in silence for a moment before Rimuru asked, how long have you been serving this family? I have been with the Nightshade family for over a century, master, Eva answered. Rimuru nodded, a sly smile playing on his lips. You're quite loyal, I'll keep that in mind. The school loomed ahead, its modern architecture a stark contrast to the Gothic world Rimuru had left behind. A sign at the entrance read, Crimson Valley Academy. Eva stopped at the gates and bowed. I will remain here until your classes are over, master. Rimuru paused and glanced back at her. Don't overdo it, he said, his tone softer than usual. Eva nodded, her violet eyes shining with determination. Yes, master. With that, Rimuru turned and strode confidently into the school, his presence commanding attention even among the crowd of unsuspecting humans. A smirk tugged at his lips as he thought, this is going to be entertaining. Rimuru walked through the grand archway of Crimson Valley Academy, his sharp crimson eyes scanning the bustling hallways. The air was filled with the chatter of students, lockers slamming shut, and the faint scent of cheap perfume mingled with cafeteria food. Despite the chaos, his presence was like a storm entering the calm. Students instinctively turned to look at him, their conversations faltering as his commanding aura filled the space. His attire, a sleek black shirt and crimson pants, set him apart from the drab uniforms most students wore. Rimuru moved through the crowd with an air of confidence, arrogance even, as if the world itself should part for his passage. Oddly enough, he knew exactly where to go. Raphael, he muttered under his breath, his lips barely moving. Why do I know where my locker is? Less than Lady Seal ensured your integration into this world, master. Familiarity with your surroundings is part of her preparations. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled darkly. Efficient as always. When he reached his locker, 4 boys were loitering nearby, their eyes fixed on him with poorly veiled hostility. Rimuru ignored them, his expression cold and uninterested. Less than, master, there is a trap inside your locker. A paint bucket rigged to spill when opened. Greater than. Rimuru sighed, brushing his hair back. How juvenile. He glanced at the boys, who were snickering among themselves. Without hesitation, he opened the locker door. As expected, a paint bucket tumbled toward him. But before it could touch him, Rimuru moved. With a single, precise motion, he caught the bucket midair and punched it with enough force to send it flying straight back. The bucket's contents exploded over the 4 boys, drenching them in vibrant colors. The hallway fell silent. Students stared, wide-eyed, as if they couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Then, laughter erupted. Did you see that? He sent it flying. Serves them right. The 4 boys stood frozen, humiliated and dripping with paint. One of them growled through clenched teeth. You'll regret this, freak. Rimuru didn't spare them a glance. Doubtful. He slammed his locker shut and walked away, the students parting to let him pass. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, though Rimuru's presence was impossible to ignore. In class, he sat at the back, arms crossed, radiating an air of disinterest. Teachers hesitated to call on him, intimidated by his piercing gaze. During lunch, Rimuru entered the cafeteria, grabbing a tray of food. The other students watched him warily, whispers following him wherever he went. He smirked inwardly, enjoying the tension he created without even trying. The afternoon classes were much the same. When the final bell rang, Rimuru stood and made his way out of the classroom. As Rimuru exited the school building, his sharp eyes caught sight of Eva standing near the gate. She was calm and composed, but the scene around her was anything but. The same 4 boys from earlier were pelting her with paintballs. Eva didn't react, standing still as the paint splattered her maid uniform. The gathered students laughed, jeering at the spectacle. Less than those boys lack basic manners, master. It would be wise to teach them a lesson. Greater than. Rimuru's lips curved into a sinister smile. You're absolutely right, Raphael. Let's have some fun. He strode toward the scene, his steps slow and deliberate. The laughter died down as the students noticed his approach. The boys stopped throwing paintballs, turning to face him with smug expressions. Eva bowed slightly as he reached her. Welcome, Master Rimuru. Rimuru sighed, catching a paintball midair without even looking. His grip crushed the fragile casing, the paint oozing between his fingers. Eva, he said, his tone cold. If anyone does something like this again, make them pay for it. Understand? Eva nodded. Yes, Master. The boys stepped forward, one of them sneering. What's the matter, rich boy? Gonna cry because we messed up your little servant? Another chimed in. She's just a maid. Why should we apologize? The insults escalated, becoming cruder. They mocked his family, his heritage, and especially Eva. Rimuru's eyes glowed with a dangerous light. Last chance, he said, his voice low and menacing. Apologize to her, or you'll regret it. The boys laughed. Like we're scared of you, freak. Without a word, Rimuru shoved a paintball into the mouth of the nearest boy and pushed him away. The boy gagged, falling to the ground, struggling to breathe. The remaining 3 charged at Rimuru. The first swung at him, but Rimuru caught his fist effortlessly. With a sickening crack, he twisted the boy's arm, breaking it at the elbow. The second boy hesitated, but Rimuru was faster. He grabbed the boy's hand and bent his fingers back until they snapped. The third tried to flee, but Rimuru appeared in front of him in an instant. A single kick sent him sprawling to the ground, clutching his ribs in pain. The boy with the paintball in his mouth finally coughed it out, gasping for air. Rimuru loomed over him, his crimson eyes blazing. Remember this, he said, his voice cold and deadly. Anyone who crosses me will regret it. The crowd of students was silent, too shocked to react. Rimuru turned to Eva. Let's go home. The walk back to the castle was quiet. Eva followed behind Rimuru, her usual composure unshaken despite the events of the day. When they arrived, Cal and Maria were waiting for them in the grand foyer. Maria's red eyes flashed with anger, while Cal's mismatched gaze held a hint of amusement. Rimuru, Maria yelled. I got a call from your teacher. What on earth were you thinking? Rimuru shrugged. They deserved it. That's not the point. Maria snapped. You can't just go around breaking people's bones. Cal chuckled softly. He's not wrong, Maria. Those boys crossed a line. Maria glared at her husband. You're not helping. Rimuru sighed. Fine. I'll be more discreet next time. Maria threw her hands up in frustration. You're impossible. That night, Rimuru lay in his room, the darkness soothing after the day's events. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Eva standing there. What is it? Eva bowed slightly. I wanted to thank you, Master, for standing up for me. Rimuru smirked. No need to thank me. I had fun breaking them. Eva nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Good night, Master. She turned and left. Rimuru closed the door, leaning against it. Less than you seem to enjoy yourself today, Master. Greater than. Of course, Rimuru said, his tone smug. This world is full of idiots who don't know their place. Teaching them is satisfying. Raphael was silent for a moment before responding. Less than as expected of you, master. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled, his crimson eyes glinting in the darkness. Tomorrow should be even more interesting. With that, he climbed into bed and drifted off to sleep. Next day, Rimuru lay peacefully in his luxurious yet eerie room, the faint glow of moonlight streaming through the heavy crimson curtains. The Gothic decor cast long, menacing shadows on the walls, the ornate furniture giving the space an unsettlingly regal feel. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the sound of his door creaking open. Eva, Cal, and Maria stepped inside, their presence immediately pulling Rimuru from his slumber. Cal motioned to Eva, "Wake him up." Eva hesitated for a moment before stepping closer to the bed. "Master Rimuru, please wake up." Rimuru stirred, his crimson eyes fluttering open as he sat up groggily. He glanced at the clock on the wall and frowned. "It's 2:30 in the morning. What are you doing in my room?" Maria crossed her arms, her expression firm yet tinged with excitement. "Get ready. We're going somewhere." Rimuru raised an eyebrow. "Where?" Maria simply turned on her heel, heading toward the door. "You'll see. Hurry up." Cal followed her out without a word, leaving Eva and Rimuru alone. Eva clasped her hands in front of her. "Shall I help pack your things, master?" Rimuru sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine. Let's get this over with." Eva moved swiftly, opening Rimuru's wardrobe and selecting clothes and essentials with meticulous care. Rimuru watched her silently as she worked, her purple hair glowing softly under the dim light. His thoughts wandered as he observed her. "She really is beautiful," he mused. "A beauty wasted in this house." Once Eva finished packing, she turned to him, holding out an outfit, a long black shirt, black pants, and a silver necklace. "Here, master. Wear this." Rimuru eyed the necklace. "Why the necklace?" Eva smiled faintly. "It's a family heirloom. I'd like you to keep it." Rimuru shrugged, taking the necklace. "Fine." He slipped it on, the cold metal resting against his skin. Eva hesitated before speaking again. "Would you like me to help you change?" Rimuru smirked, shaking his head. "No need. You can leave now." Eva bowed and exited the room. As Rimuru changed into his new attire, a wave of dizziness suddenly washed over him. He stumbled slightly, gripping the edge of his desk for support. "Raphael, what's happening to me?" "Less than master, this is the result of prolonged exposure to human blood. The scent you encountered yesterday has triggered your latent instincts as a vampire." "Greater than." Rimuru growled. "Make it stop. Less than it will take some time to subside naturally." "Greater than." Frustrated, Rimuru scowled. "You're starting to sound like great sage." At that moment, Eva returned, checking on his readiness. As she walked toward his packed bag, Rimuru's senses were overwhelmed by the faint but enticing aroma of her blood. "Eva," he said, his voice tight. "Turn around and face the door." She obeyed without question, her back to him. Rimuru approached her silently, his crimson eyes glowing faintly. In an instant, he leaned forward, sinking his fangs into her neck. Eva gasped, her body stiffening in shock. Heat flushed her face, and she bit her own finger to stifle a reaction. Rimuru drank deeply, savoring the rich taste before pulling back. "Sorry," he said, his voice low and rough. Eva touched her neck, her cheeks still crimson. "It's okay." She quickly gathered his belongings and left the room, clearly flustered. As the door closed behind her, Raphael spoke again. "Less than notice. Blood control successfully acquired." "Greater than." Rimuru frowned. "What does that mean?" "Less than the ability to manipulate blood as a liquid has been unlocked. Additionally, you no longer need to drink blood for sustenance." "Greater than." Rimuru sighed, exasperated. "Couldn't I have gained that before drinking her blood?" "Less than the skill was unlocked as a result of consuming her blood, master." "Greater than." He shook his head and slung his bag over his shoulder. "Let's get this over with." Cal and Maria were waiting outside in a sleek black car, their expressions unreadable. Rimuru climbed into the backseat, while Eva took the driver's seat. As the car pulled away from the castle, Rimuru leaned forward. "Where are we going?" Maria smiled. "To your new school, Nevermore Academy. It's a far better place for someone like you." Rimuru frowned. "I don't want to go." Cal's voice was firm. "You don't have a choice. Make us proud." Rimuru leaned back, glaring out the window. After 8 hours of driving, the car rolled into the small town of Jericho, Vermont. Rimuru looked out at the quaint streets lined with shops and restaurants. People milled about, their gazes lingering on the car with thinly veiled suspicion. "Raphael, Rimuru muttered. Why are they staring? Less than master, the townsfolk view students of Nevermore Academy with unease. Their supernatural nature and behaviors are at odds with Jericho's conservative values, leading to mistrust. Greater than. Rimuru smirked. So, there are others like me. Less than, yes, master. Nevermore Academy hosts a variety of supernatural beings, including vampires, werewolves, sirens, gorgons, psychics, shapeshifters, and hides. Greater than. His interest piqued. Vampires. Like me. Less than, yes, but they belong to different lineages. Greater than. Rimuru chuckled darkly. This could be interesting. The car approached the gates of Nevermore Academy, which creaked open ominously to reveal the sprawling campus. Gothic spires reached toward the sky, and the stone walls were covered in creeping ivy. The atmosphere was heavy with mystery and foreboding, the very air seeming to hum with latent power. The car came to a stop, and Eva stepped out to open the doors for Rimuru and his parents. As Rimuru exited, he took in the grandeur of the academy with a raised eyebrow. Maria sighed wistfully. I had so much fun here when I was your age. Cal nudged her gently. Let's hurry. She's waiting for us. Maria nodded, leading the way inside. Rimuru followed with Eva close behind, his eyes scanning the towering buildings and the students who watched them from a distance. They stopped in front of a large oak door adorned with intricate carvings. Maria turned to Rimuru. Are you ready? Rimuru sighed. As ready as I'll ever be. Cal pushed the door open, and they stepped inside.